running late. But here we are. Monday night on Twitch. And that means that it is time for our podcast. Now, you can see we've got a couple of variations here in the studio. I try to straighten some things out here. Just because, as you can see on my table, I've been painting like a madman. But tonight is our Monday night discussion, which means we are going to be talking about world building. And in order to talk about good world building, we have to prep up a couple of items. We're going to swing some cameras around here, make some adjustments, just because I was videoing and painting, obviously. You can see the messiness there. And get this camera set here a little bit. I've got to yet do some photography and some challenges there. All right, hey, let's see how that is for a camera. Not too bad, not too bad. I'm gonna bring this one up a little bit. Oh, I guess that's a little upside down, isn't it? Okay, well, we're gonna keep playing with some cameras and making some adjustments here. All right. My apologies on the delay. So world building. World building. Now, last time we talked a lot about prepping up after our short one-shot about what we could do for the next campaign, because I do want to run a 1 to 20 level campaign. So in order to do that, I started out with my campaign premise, which I will grab here in just a moment. We'll start looking at some campaign build-up. Clear all my great painting supplies. So we've got some good area and room. To be able to work on campaign. Okay, I'm going to grab my campaign stuff. I'll be right back. All right. Now, last time we talked about where to put our campaign, because I do want to have it be in a temperate climate, and I think that could have some good applications for my characters. So that was kind of the goal. I also wanted to stick with an area that I don't utilize very much currently in my campaigns. So looking at my world map, this is the most recent one I created for 5th edition. The kind of temperate zones in here. Now this campaign, we're going to be doing a mid-level campaign in this area, so I want to change that up. Erland, we've explored quite a bit in previous campaigns, as has Espar and Haveen. So I'm actually thinking about placing it down in here. Now with my world map, this is a massive continent, and it gives us a lot of opportunity to play. And just going through the notes that we had, we want to look at our story and see what type of area our story is going to consist of. Now, the first aspect to look at is our tiers. We know there's going to be storms that are going to drive people in to the first tier of adventure. We talked about our prophecy. We know for level 1, we want to have the players be forced together into a area where they can hopefully form a group. Now, if you want to already start as a group, one thing you can do is just tell them that they're already part of an adventuring group and have that be part of a shared backstory that they ultimately can tell you how they form or how they meet, however you want to work that operation in. But because I'm going to use mine storytelling to drive them into an area and hopefully come up with some creative aspects for them to band together, we just put out some things for that first tier, tier 1, where they become local heroes. And then tier 2 is where they start moving beyond that initial area. So I know that the main aspect that I want to use is a smaller city that they can constantly come back to in that first tier. I don't want them to be completely out and alone, away from any support or help while they're in that tier. So some of the first things I need to do is look at those adventuring days. Make sure those are up. I know that may be a little difficult to see on the screen, but we'll go through those. Maybe let's see if this pen works. Yeah. Okay, so they've got one adventuring day for clearing the woods. That's going to bring them from level 1 to level 2. 1 day from level 2 to level 3. 1.5 days at level 3 to 4, and 2.25 days for level 4 to 5. So when they go to level 5, that's when they have to go to a larger area. And we've already gone through and worked out a lot of the themes, who the nemesis is going to be, and then what those adventuring days are like. But we haven't really put down the adventure area ideas. Partly because before that, I want to go through and just flesh out my tier 1. So this is going to be the tier 1. We know Renko is going to be an important NPC. And kind of the patron for the adventuring group. So Renko is actually going to be the innkeeper, who is also the, we will say, kind of the mayor of the town. But I don't want to use a mayor. What's another good position? We will have Renko be the elder of the town. And we haven't really gotten a town yet, a town name. Now I do know we want to play a little bit with the town itself, and we'll map it out more fully and flesh it out a little bit. But I went through and looked at towns that have a lot of canals, and Vienna just kept coming up as the primary. So I went ahead and took a bunch of pictures of Venice, not Vienna, Venice. I took a lot of pictures of Venice so that I could use it as kind of my de facto location. And remember, all of the adventurers are on their way to an adventuring point. They've decided they will be going on an adventure. So what I wanted to do was have a primary road and then a split road, so that regardless of where they're going, they're moving towards the center area. The center area is where my town is going to be. And what I want to do is actually make this a coast, so that this road goes along the coast. And we'll vary this up a little bit. And then I'm actually going to give this a winding river as well. And I'm just doing lots of doodles. And make a big old winding river that splits out here. Maybe not even there. Maybe we will carry that in to a lake. That then splits out into two rivers leading into the sea. So you can tell I have not prepped anything here yet. I am just doing a coast that I can place along a coastline here. So this doesn't have to be super fleshed out. Now these roads, what I want to do is have some adjustment here. And this road, you can see if it's going into the sea, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do that with another landmass here. We'll break this out a little bit, have a landmass here, and a landmass here. And then this will be a bigger city with a port. So I'll do a little doodling for some docks there. That's a port city. And we'll adjust a lot of this. This road here then is not a road, but actually a waterway. So this center area is going to be the center of our town. Now this here could make for a great opportunity to make a regional map. And just keeping everything kind of penciled in, I'm just going to call out some things that our primary city, let's call this, or actually let's start here with our port city. Port city is going to be, let's call this Herons Bay, because of the blue herons that are there. And then our city where our adventurer party is going to be driven is going to be called, let's call this the, well, let's name some of the roads. This one here is going to be the Gold Coast Road. And this will be the, let's call this one the, let's see, it's going inland. So let's call this the Capital Way. Oop. Capital May, no, Capital Way. So as we're working on creating from more scratch, even though we've got an existing world and everything, I am not pulling up my local areas. I am not pulling up any of my pre-built items that I used for this location. I am just coming up with it right off the cuff so we can start grounding our tier 1. So our primary city then, let's name, let's see, let's name this something on the canals. It's older, it's been used for a long time. Let's call this the let's call it the, you know what we're going to do is cheat a little bit, and I'm going to go to a website here, and I'm going to do a fantasy name generator. And we'll let somebody else do all the work for us. We are going to call this, I'm looking for something that looks really good. Goldgate. Because this is the gate from the Gold Coast Road. And this is the gate to the port city of Herons Bay. So there we go. Now we've got Goldgate. We know that roughly it's going to have a street going this way and this way. And then north is going to be on this end, of course. Where those roads converge, we want to have a big open square, a big marketplace. That's the town square. Now I'm going to go to my map that I have of Venice and look at how they have their canals, which actually are, they're not every street. They just have like major streets that are canals. And Venice is a very big city. So for, depending on how we're doing this, we don't want it to be too massive. We don't want it to be as big as Venice. We want it to be a very small locale. But what I want to do is have the roadway cut right across in a way right across the market, but not completely separating it, and then carry back on into itself. So my canals are going to be big bold lines. And I'm just going to make some different canals. And just kind of following along what they do in Venice. And so remember, we made this kind of an island, so we'll just roughly draw in a little bit of an island shape of what we had and mark these canals accordingly. And these are old canals. They've been around for a long time. That could be a cool feature where some canals meet. And yeah, I think that's pretty good for just some canals. And then off of those canals we can have different streets. Of course, this is not going to be as big as Venice, but what we want to do is just start thinking about the kind of shape of the area that we want to have it in. And we will throw a couple more like zigzagging canals here, just to add some interest. Ultimately, we don't want the characters to spend too much time here. There's not going to be any big adventures here, but what I want to do is just get an area that they can be familiar with, that has some cool, interesting aspects of it, and then for any downtime, I want them to be able to utilize the area to do some role-playing and downtime activities. So that could be anything from just walking the city streets to just conversing with NPCs, talking about the area, a preparation to go the Capital Way and move on to their Tier 2 after they've completed the Tier 1 kind of aspects. And we know one of them is going to be clearing the canals. I haven't decided what that's going to be yet. But by looking at our Tier 1, I want to start setting up, and we may move these. We put clear the canals as that fourth part. We may move that to the first level 1 aspect. But we know that we want to have some type of fields in here. So we'll do some fields, I suppose. I'm not doing these very good justice, but just on my rough map, I just want to mark down that there's going to be fields. And I'm just doing some cross hatches to show fields. And that'll give an area that we'll adventure to at some point. Now we want to have woods, and these woods are going to be near the road because we want them to clear the woods. And again, just rough, we'll call these the Warrow Woods. We also said we want to clear the hills, and let's do the hills over here. This is a different way, but this could be whatever is challenging into the fields, and the woods could be emanating from the hills. So we've got canals, we've got the hills. We'll call these the Marison Hills, and Warrow Woods, and then the Gold Gate Fields. So we've got adventuring areas kind of roughed in. We know the canals are going to be a challenge at some point. Let's start talking about the area itself of Gold Gate. So this is where we're going to start getting into some of the details. I want the characters to spend quite a bit of time here. So the port city of Heron's Bay is going to be, and I'm just going to pop some notes on here, small, unwelcoming. This is primarily cargo, and yeah, this is just a point where things get loaded and unloaded. There is not much going on here, so this is all just transport. Because they're in close proximity to Gold Gate, there is going to be a bridge connecting the two, which is also a point of defense for Gold Gate. Gold Gate is the bigger city, the town, if you will, where Port City is just, think of it more as the warehousing district, if you will. It is the place where there will be warehouses, there will be kind of old weathered docks, there will be a lot of busy activity, but no real welcoming accommodations or anything like that. If the characters choose to investigate or explore or even stay there, the welcoming is cold. There's not much there. Golden Gate is where I want to drive them. And to do that without giving them too many rails, I don't want to railroad them. There will be opportunity if they choose to save coins and stay in Heron's Bay. We'll allow them to do that, but I want to make it to where they feel more comfortable at Gold Gate. Likewise, they could camp in the hills or the woods or the fields or around the area. Just if they choose to do that, there will be consequences to those because it's unsafe, because we know those are already going to be adventuring areas. So I'm not really railroading. What I'm doing is putting up some barriers, not even barriers, I don't know the right word. I'm making the location I want be the most welcoming, the most fleshed out, the most interesting. So for Golden Gate, we know kind of where our canals are going to be. That does not mean, just like Venice, that is not the only streets. So what I want to do is start just popping in some odd shapes here. And this is going to be our kind of city layout. And you'll see we'll pop in some alleyways and streets here as we fill this out. There will be clearly defined roads, and we can even augment those in some areas if we want to by putting in things, just thinner lines where we can go through and just pop in a couple of things, and then we know based on that where our buildings are going to be. And again, we don't want this to get too big. I want to avoid getting too large in scale. A little nicer house with a tree. Maybe along here we'll have a couple of bigger buildings or homes. Again, the canals themselves are not going to be massive. So just popping in, I do like the way that canal kind of curves around here on that street. So we'll make a very interesting building here. And maybe this one actually cradles one of those canals as it leaves. That could be a good watchtower there. Some type of an element for the canal to go under it through kind of an archway. We'll do that here as well. Those will be watch point areas, and we'll do one here as well. Those will be multi-stories that bridge over and have archways over the canals. Now I do know that I want to have a street here for sure, so leading into the marketplace. I'm going to actually make this one a little bit different. So we'll put a bridge over the canal here. And then this street just coming up from the little bay area. And we'll have small docks over here. Nothing massive because this is not the port city. So just some small areas. And then this one will also get a watchtower. And this one will get a watchtower. And this one will get a watchtower. Now getting into the meat and potatoes of our area, I know I want to have a good sized inn. That's going to be right off the market. I want the canals to go right alongside of it. We'll have a cool like balcony piece, a multi-balcony piece that we can watch the canals. And this is going to be, I'm just going to put GOAG, GOAG for Green Oaks Arts and Gaming. So all of my cities start with Green Oaks Inn. And that is going to be the place where Renko operates from. That is also, because we know he's going to be the Eldar, that is going to be a pretty famous area. And then this one here will be another right off of your market square. And then we will have one here and here. This one is going to also go over the canals a little bit. So some bigger areas right off the square. Now this one here, we said we want this square to be a little more open, but with a canal running through it, so we got to put a bridge there. Maybe we'll have a big bridge there and then small bridges here on either side. So aspects for our city, what are some important things? We know already there are going to be some fields nearby, so we need to have a lot of homes. And we'll say the majority of the homes for the field workers are going to be up in this area here. And all we're doing is roughing. We don't have to have this be perfect. We're not making this a very detailed map. This is just to get our juices going and start putting some details in. So we'll put in here homes, and this is blue collar workers. Now we've got some fancier buildings up here, so this is going to be owners and coined. Business, all right in this area here. We know that there are a number of canals that give us our access to some of these locations. Now, one thing I always like to do is include a temple, and we're going to have that be right off of the marketplace, and that's going to be a big temple. And to make it interesting, we'll give it some funky shapes, so some semicircles coming off of a square, and then we'll put a dome on it. So that's going to be our temple area. I'm going to keep that road kind of twisted a little bit. We'll put in a smaller building here. We'll go through and actually make a map and get it more detailed and scaled out and everything. Again, this is just to give us some details of who lives here and what it's about. So a funky shape here with a curve around the canal, but also a roadway. So we want to have a real funky shaped building. So funky shaped buildings, what can they be used for? All kinds of things, I suppose. This one is just along the bridge. This goes all the way over to the canals there. Maybe this is a warehouse. And that preps some stuff before it goes on the bridge to the docks to be loaded and unloaded. And just some funky areas. We've got a road there. Let's put a bridge here to carry this road over. And that gets us onto this side of town. Let's do a bridge over here to get us to this quarter. And we'll do a bridge here. So one thing I want to look at is, as people are coming from the docks, how are they getting from place to place? I don't want them to immediately be able to get into that area. So we've got to put some over the canals. There's got to be a set path for them to get there. And so then let's do in this one here. This will be the slums or poorest area with lots of smaller houses and hovels. These are workers. These are people who are leaving all the time by day. So we want to give them access from the docks right into their area. So basically just coming up this way into their area. And then the populace is trying to keep this kind of sequestered away from this area. But we will put a little bit of a bridge there. So from this area, how would they get there? We do want to have at least one access point. So we'll put a bridge here and we'll put more residential. And then this one here is going to be business. This little area here we're going to have be a park, outdoor area. Bridge connecting there to here. This is going to be military. Not really military, but defensive anyhow. Or maybe upper class extended. And then you want to put a very cool triangular building here. Maybe that has a little offshoot of it. And then a building right off of that canal and the market. Maybe this area here is religious housing. So we're starting to fill in what belongs here, and just kind of roughly mapping some cool locations that we can then get some details and finalize about. So we're already getting a lot of good information about our Tier 1 area. So he is the elder of Gold Gate and owner of the Green Oak Inn. That's who the kind of patron of the Tier 1 is going to be. For the city of Gold Gate, just from the quick map, what can we deduce from it? We know there's a strong shipping. But because they're on an island, there isn't a whole lot of production. So low production. That means there's lots of travel, merchants moving through. With that, there has to be warehousing. There has to be stables and wagon storage. Limited field for, let's see, this is a coastal area. What are they going to grow? Should we have them grow one primary thing? Maybe it's potatoes, who knows? It could be wheats or barley, some type of grains. So grains, tubers, maybe it's like lettuce, could be corn, could be a lot of different things. We're going to go with grains. So if they're growing grains, we know that they need to have some silos and a mill to grind those grains and be able to make them into bread. So the people there, what can we deduce on the people? We know that many of them are going to be, they're going to have some boating experience. We'll put boating and water experience. What's important to them? Staying dry and warm. So they're going to use lots of wools. And what else? Oiled leather. What about fishing? They're on the water, they're coastal. How big is fishing? How big is fishing? I'm going to say fishing is minor. Minor fishing. Most of the people either work the docks or work the fields or work at the businesses located in the city. Pardon me. Now again, our city is not going to be a big, massive, huge, sprawling area. I want this to be a starting location where the players feel their characters are going to be safe and comfortable as they're exploring the immediate surrounding regions, getting ready to move up into that next tier. But I do know I want the canals to be an important aspect of the adventure before they move into the fields and the hills and the woods, and we can adjust those if we want. Maybe instead of the fields, we have them go into the sewers. Maybe the canals lead into the sewers, and that's how we kind of coordinate those pieces before they then move into the woods and then into the hills. So that could be a cool thing. I'm going to actually mark that on my paper. So instead of the fields, maybe we go into the sewers. So the people here are focused on their work to get paid. Money is going to be a necessity for them. They have bills. And what are those bills? Those are going to be things like maybe none of them actually own the buildings. They have to lease it all. Leases to, and maybe that's why Renko is the Eldar, because he actually owns Green Oak Inn. So they lease to Lord in Tier 2 town. And that's the one we want the adventurers to eventually go to. But they have to work hard so that they can pay their leases and keep food on the table. So they're all about focusing on work. They also have, let's see, they wear lots of wools, oil leather, maybe little bits of linens. They also, what's a commonality that we can pop into here that could be interesting? We don't want the PCs to feel like outsiders. We want them to be welcomed in and kind of heralded to become the local heroes. So let's say they are warm and welcoming. To possible, let's say, to possible paychecks. They'll be happy to give you the warm greetings in hopes that in some way it's going to grease their pockets a little bit. Now, the city itself, I don't want it to be a shabby, ran down, stinky place like on the Hobbit series when they went to Lake Town. It was kind of nasty and kind of hobbled together and everything. I want this to be a little more established and well put together, but I do want to have it be an area where there definitely is some temperate aspects of the climate. So staying dry and warm is important. So now that we've got the kind of area, we've got a good idea about the people, let's talk about who they are and what they do. So the people being coastal, we know they wear wools, oil leathers, linens, focused on their work to get paid. They've all got bills because none of them, or very few of them, own anything here in Gold Gate. So let's start with experiences of the people. They are good at rope making and boat maintenance. We'll say boat/wood maintenance. A little bit of stonework, because the city I want to be a large part of it to be stone, not all of it, of course, but a good amount of stone. We'll make that an end, boat and wood maintenance. We know that they don't have the means of getting the leather, but that's one of the things they trade for is leather. So there is going to be a leather oiling processing. So possible leather armor. So we also, with that wood maintenance, possibly some type of a bowyer. Because they're doing grains, they're also bringing in linens. So tailor. And then we know that they're dock workers. So we've got to have some type of foreman for the docks. And we know they have to pay taxes to the lords, so there's definitely some type of a tax collector. So those are all pretty good aspects of who the kind of who's who in the city. Let's talk about the people themselves. They're bringing in leathers and linens. How do they make it their own? What do they do to differentiate themselves from everybody else? The city is called Gold Gate because of the gates to the port as well as the roads. But they don't have gold. So how do they differentiate themselves? Maybe they've got some type of a set tartan. As well as a banner and flag. This could definitely be a gold gate or archway with a gondola to represent the canals. And then tartans, let's say these are going to be yellow for the gold, green for the field, and blue for the water. Yellow, green, and blue tartans. Maybe this is tartans, aprons, scarves, hats, like knit hats, and then leather things over that for when they need to keep themselves protected. So already we've got a lot of good aspects on the starting city. Probably what I'll do before the next time is go ahead and work on the map. Depending, we may work on it next week as well. It all depends on timing, how we are for timing. But if possible, I'll work on this map and kind of fine-tooth the location as well as flesh out some of these people that we want to do. Now, Renko, for sure, we want to have be that patron, but as we push the characters into the inn, we know we want them to hear the prophecy or somehow interact with the prophecy. My initial thoughts are that there is going to be someone else who was driven in by the storms, who who is having been affected by that prophecy. But I also do like the thought of tying in the sewers with the canals. So maybe the canals lead to the sewers. So we'll have to start thinking about that, how we can start building this adventure for the canals and then the sewers. What is the threat? Why is it coming? Why is it happening? How does it tie into the prophecy? And how does it affect the people that are here? How can we clearly tell that it's not an aspect of the city but a threat to the city that they're looking to local heroes to achieve? So Renko on security by summer is having difficulty getting it using people because of the storms that have blown in. So the theme here is vulnerability of the meek. I want to make these people seem kind of meek. And so far I think we've done a good job of that. I mean, we've stayed on theme and we haven't really even talked about it. These are people who don't own the area they're living in. They're hard workers. They don't produce a lot aside from the grains, which primarily is going to be consumed by them. So very dependent on a lot of different aspects that they're not producing themselves. I think that's a great example of the vulnerability of the meek theme. And then for a nemesis, we don't have one pinned down, but I do like the way that we've tied in the canals and the sewers. So we'll explore that a little bit more in the next one when we start building the adventure. I'm hoping by that point to have a good map. In that map, I do want to talk also about the sewers, how they connect. And I'm not really sure how that happens in a place like Venice. I would imagine that the canals somehow drain into the sewers to help keep things flushed. But I can almost envision the sewers being even beneath the waterways of the canals. And that's how I'm going to build these canals. The sewers themselves are going to drain, or the canals are going to have some drainage into the sewers out into the sea. So I've got to think about the layout on that coast because I want the canals to be fed from the lake and the rivers and not the sea itself. So the canals themselves will drain kind of into the sea but also into the sewers and then out to sea. So we'll work a little bit on the area map as well as the city map, hopefully off screen, and utilize it in our world map here in Vorland is where we'll probably place the location of this adventure. Just because I have not gamed in that area since probably 3rd edition, and then just lightly. 2nd edition, I think, was when we really explored that area, was in 2nd edition. So ripe for the picking. It's got some interesting landscaping just on the coast. Wherever we want to put this, I'm thinking up in this area here, so we keep it more closer to that equator. Again, I want to keep it in a kind of not tropical, in a temperate climate. So that could be good. I could also keep it close to our last adventure here in Deutschland, but I like the thought of having it be completely different, something I haven't explored in a long time. So I'll actually go ahead and mark that on here. Vorland continent. And then that allows me, as we run through all of the tiers, to be able to affect bigger and bigger areas that we haven't explored in games recently. So I know that was kind of confusing, and I don't know if it feels to you like we got a lot done, but to me it feels like we got a lot done. Just in a quick spot of building out the area that we want to have our Tier 1 happen, I'm getting a good idea of the people and the customs that the PCs are going to encounter, so that when we start that first adventure, that first scenario, after we give the prologue and drive them into the inn because of the rains, whether they're coming by boat or by road, we have a reason for them to all gather onto one location and then start building adventure crumbs out of it based on the layout of a city, and really make them feel like they are able to help the meek people of Goldgate and become local heroes for the area. So I'm really super excited. I think this little bit of prep work, even though it may not seem like much, really helps build a foundation and allows us to make stories that are going to be more impactful for the players themselves to be able to utilize immersion. So by thinking about how we can do this a little bit better, and by utilizing the kind of aspects of looking at our games a little bit differently, I think we've got a great starting point and something where we can build more and more and more to have a unique people and cultures that our characters around the table can interact with and hopefully save. So I hope that was beneficial. That's our Monday night show of journeying and exploring new locations, new people, new cultures, new everything. I hope it was insightful for you. I hope it was enjoyable in some way, shape, or form. Don't hesitate, if you haven't given us a follow yet. Give us a follow so we can reach new hobbyists and hopefully continue to grow our base of content to be more and more impactful for the community. Let us know in our comments, either here or on our other socials, content you'd like to see us cover. We'd be happy to adjust our schedule to meet the needs that we can to get more and more community built. Thank you and have a great evening.